Hi, Dr. Hoff. How are you today? So I'm here to video log a discussion of my research and what I will be doing my mini ethnography project on. And so I do apologize. I do have a little bit of a script off to the side over here, so you may see me looking off. Number one, because I want to make sure to address all of your questions and hit all of those points. Also, number two, I'm a little bit nervous kind of doing this by a video format. I would have preferred to do this in person with you, but coming down to campus is difficult for me. So, number one, kind of talking a little bit about my project. I am interested in exploring, understanding, learning more about the communication and self-advocacy behaviors of students with documented disabilities. I feel that this population does experience some attitudinal barriers and perhaps even discrimination from not only their peers but also faculty and staff at the college as well too, just due to some lack of education, misunderstanding of their disability and what accommodations really do for these students. So some of my concerns are I have been in higher education disability services for a little over 11 years, and it is well documented that students with disabilities do have lower graduation rates, they have lower retention rates, and just general overall more negative outcomes than their non-disabled peers. Um, and I think that these negative outcomes and the educational frustration that they experience in their academic endeavors ultimately contributes and serves to isolate the student and to undermine their self-determination and their human dignity. So it's somewhat of a social justice issue for me. And so what I've thought about the topic in the past is that students with disabilities face a number of challenges in their academic pursuits, both internally and externally. And by that, I'm thinking of students with hidden disabilities that are not readily noticeable to their faculty and to their peers and are often misunderstood. Students with psychological disabilities or disorders, and students with invisible medical conditions like Crohn's disease and irritable bowel syndrome, perhaps even cancer, um, other conditions like that, that to look at the student you wouldn't notice right away unless they were to tell you what they were experiencing. So I think that students with visible disabilities, it's much more apparent what their needs may be and how they may be impacted by their circumstances or by their disability. But hidden disability, those students may face some discrimination and stigma based on perceptions of if they do share that they have an anxiety disorder or depression or bipolar. There's some lack of education out there, some misperceptions, and I think that that creates a sense of other, right? They're kind of not like us, they're different. The site that I have selected is a community college in the Midwestern United States. I have selected this disability service program at this community college because it's unique in that it does offer a little bit more than accommodations for students. They have a little bit more available to support students. And one of those is a resource room that students can come in, and it's so the disability service program is for students strictly with documented disabilities, and they have a resource room that has several computers in there. It has large desks for students to come and just kind of sit around and study. They can get tutoring there, specialized tutoring for students with learning disabilities, ADHD, psychological impairments, things like that. And they can use a variety of assistive technology that's on the computers to support them. It may be due to a visual impairment, deaf or hard of hearing, as well as textbooks in alternative format for students with maybe reading disorders and things like that. And just general kind of staff walking around, offering help, answering questions, kind of guiding students. So there's the possibility there to to see students interacting one-on-one because they may be studying. They can interact with each other. The students can also interact with the faculty or the staff of the disability resource room. They can also interact with perhaps faculty who come in to drop off exams and things like that. So I think there's a great opportunity to see how students interact with one another, as well as with the staff, to really look at some of those self-advocacy behaviors and how are they communicating, what is the language that they're using, and hopefully identify some patterns and trends of what is successful types of language and communication styles and self-advocacy behaviors, and what kind of hinders or what negatively affect their self-advocacy and communication behaviors. So that's the site. My relationship to the participants is really none. This is not a place of my employment. I do not work there. I will be sitting in the room just solely based as an observer. It will be great that I can have my laptop out and kind of be typing up my field notes, my observations, without them really kind of wondering why. They may inquire. I have gotten permission, obviously, to be at the site. They may inquire as to who I am, an unfamiliar face, especially at this time of the semester. And so I really won't have any interactions with them other than informal, dialogue, questions, who are you, or, things like that. So, but I've had no previous interactions with this group. So going along with that as well too, the participants' role in the design, data collection, analysis, authorship of this study will be very minimal, just based on the purpose of the study. The purpose of the study is for a course requirement. It's not an official full, but it's a mini ethnography as a course requirement, and so I won't have access to some things and the ability to really involve them due to time constraints, my ability to interact with the participants. It will be more so for the professional staff. I will have some more opportunity to interact with them, but due to the confidential nature of students with documented disabilities, is the agreement with going to the site is that I really don't involve the students in all of this, but I will have the staff input. I anticipate interviewing the professional staff, again, due to the kind of limitations on my access to students. So I will be interviewing the coordinator of the program, who does intakes, determines reasonable accommodations for students, kind of is the face of disability services around the campus, and works towards ensuring a welcoming, inclusive environment and making sure everything is accessible for students. I will also interview the secretary or the receptionist who greets students when they come in, sets them up with their exam, if they're there for exam accommodations, things like that, gets them set up with the tutor if they're there to meet with the tutor. And then finally, that will be the last person that I'll interview is a tutor. So all of them have extensive experience working with students with documented disabilities and a wide variety of disabilities, from physical impairments, medical impairments, psychological impairments, things like that. And I plan to conduct my observations within the next 3 weeks or so. They will be on spring break between March 13th and 17th, so that will be off limits to me. But I've scheduled to come in like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 10 to noon, talking with the coordinator. That tends to be a busier time for the resource room, and so there should be a lot of activity going on, many more students. It's kind of a busy, popular time of day, so I can get lots of action to observe. And then I will hope to do my interviews as soon after I've kind of had a chance to go through all my observational data and see any kinds of trends, patterns of those effective behaviors, communication styles, and those that are hindering. And then finally, what types of documents or artifacts do I anticipate collecting? I will not be taking any videos or photographs. I don't think that this is an appropriate place to do that. However, I may sketch out a diagram of the setup of the resource room, because how the tables are set up and the chairs and the computers may be a contributing factor into the interaction styles of the students and the staff. So I may do something like that. I may try to snatch up any scratch paper that is left behind from students who are working on their homework assignments, or perhaps doodling as they've been distracted maybe, or just kind of passing time until another class starts. So if they leave anything like that behind, I may collect that with permission of the program coordinator. And then I'm also hoping to collect some of the documents they use, like the forms students use to request accommodations, their procedures for how students use accommodations, like a handbook, any testing forms that students may need to fill out to schedule their exams. I'm looking at some of these kind of documents and procedures for how students request accommodations, how students disclose to their professor that they need accommodations, to see if there are any systemic barriers to accessing accommodations and the necessary support services to support their academic success. So I hope that gives you some insight into my research and what I hope to do. Please do contact me. You mentioned that if you had any questions or concerns about my responses, that you would reach out to me. So I would be interested in hearing any comments, feedback, suggestions that you have for me as I move forward with this. And if you do need anything, please let me know. So you have a great day, and thank you so much. Nice talking to you. Bye.